57talk.com, Gary Cubetta, Scottsdale, Arizona. And yes, I have returned for another program, and it's my pleasure to introduce from the great state of, are you still in Oklahoma?
No, I'm in Atlanta, in Georgia.
In Georgia, Erik Watts. Erik, I've wanted to have you on 57talk.com for a long time from Atlanta. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about you?
I'm fine. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I followed your career since the early 90s. Of course, I'm a huge fan of your father's, Cowboy Bill Watts, UWF, and when he came into Turner, very disappointing ending to that. And what are you doing these days? What are you up to, Erik?
You know what? It's kind of crazy that you asked. Just about a month ago, I put my name out as far as taking bookings to wrestle. I took 3 years off. I had to take care of some personal issues. When I say that in the wrestling business, you know, that everyone goes to one thought. It was called divorce. It played out for about 3 years, 3.5 years in court. I was spending most of my time with my kids during that court battle. It's over, and there for a little while I was taking autograph sessions, just, you know, like about 6 months ago, and it rolled into the fact that after that I saw the fans' response, and I saw, you know, that people wanted to see me back wrestling again, so I started taking bookings. I am slammed. I don't even know. I think I'm booked up through the beginning of next year, or the first part, and probably could take them on further, but just haven't. It's been a blessing. It's been fun. It's also hurt. I'm not going to lie. 3 years not being in the ring, man. the stuff hurt.
Hard to adjust, huh? Back to getting your body beat, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, it reminds me of my old days at WCW. I mean, you know, the first few days I was in the ring, I just had blood running down, you know, the right side where I was hitting the ropes, and being split open, and my back was just, I mean, you know, this past few weeks, just my back has been bruised, and my thighs and my legs and my knees, and so it's quite interesting. However, you know, I'm sure it's just as hard on the guys that I'm wrestling, because with my timing maybe not being as on, I'm going to set it in there a little bit further, like my dad and them taught me. So I don't know who probably is more sore with my comeback, me or my opponents. But the rust is coming off, and I'm excited. I'm having a lot of fun.
Erik, you did a shoot DVD interview. It's all over the internet. It's on YouTube. Erik Watts did a High Spots shoot interview, and I always give my opinion, and some people agree with it, and some people don't. I've seen highlights. It looks like a horror show. It's not something that I'd be terribly proud of, and I'd like to ask you just point blank, how'd you get involved with that, and why did you decide to do an interview that came out in such an unflattering way?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, okay? I mean, first of all, High Spots had come to me through some friends in the business. I had asked them had they had relationships with them, had they done business with them. Some of the people that I spoke to spoke very highly of High Spot, okay? And so I sat there and said, fine. I through the grapevine, it came to me. They contacted my brother, Micah Watts, and were interested in doing an interview with me. I got on the phone with them, and somehow the translation was they wanted to do an interview with me, and they wanted to drive down at the same time and do one with Lex Luger and a few other people. It took probably 6 to 9 months in order to put the deal together to do the interview. But it's just as this interview is, or any other interview. You know, you can see an interview blowing up sometimes. I've not really had it happen like the one in High Spot. And by the time I found it blowing up, I was in too deep to sit there and say, stop, I'm done, I'm not doing this, see you later. Because once they have that footage, do they have to give the footage back or not? So what I did was I just sat there and answered the questions.
Erik, are you agreeing with me that the interview didn't come off well?
I'm agreeing with the fact that the interview sucked. I haven't seen it, and I told them it sucked due to the unprofessional way they did it. I mean, they did the interview in a hotel room, which is very small, with 2 major lamps on you. They turned the air conditioner off. The thermostat was stuck on 80-something. They had no water. They had nothing. It was hot as hell. The guy interviewing me was all of probably like 23, 24 years old. I don't know what you consider, plump or not. He's kicking about 380 pounds.
Whoa, Erik, excuse me, but someone 23 years old interviewed you? I would doubt they had even seen you wrestle.
Well, I don't know if look, he could have been 32. I don't know. In between him asking questions, he was so asleep because I don't know whether he hadn't eaten or the heat stroke from being in there. The cameraman was dying. I had brought a manager with me. He was absolutely dying. He's sweating. I'm sweating, and I don't know what they did when Michael from High Spots, he said, "Oh, Eric, man, we know how to ask questions. We know how to do this. We know how to do that. Blah blah blah. I'm gonna come up. I'm gonna check on the interview." The owner of High Spots didn't come in to check, see how things were going. Hi, hello, nothing. And then the guy that asked me the questions, it seemed like he must have gone on some sites and picked random questions that have been done over the last 2 years in interviews and just asked them. He had no passion about it. He didn't care. I mean, he literally asked a question and then he laid his head on a pillow. Ask a question.
Well, wait a minute. Because in the interview, and I don't mean to be rude and jump in, but I've seen this highlight up on YouTube, Erik Watts shoot interview, and you keep looking to it looks like you're looking to your right.
Yeah, because the guy was passing out. The guy was laying on a bed. The guy was laying on a bed with his head on a pillow asking me questions.
The guy is laying on a bed. Do we know
The guy's laying on a bed.
Do we know?
You can't walk in the room because it's lamps and background and things like that. So literally, there's no room except for where you can walk between the TV and the bed and to the bathroom. It's literally 80-plus degrees in there, and this large kid has a pillow under his head and just asking me questions and literally falling asleep in between. And when we were done, he goes, "Don't take it wrong. It was so hot in the room. I was just passing out." I said, "You were passing out," and then I just went on a rampage.
What do you mean you went on a rampage?
I told them there was a girl that worked for High Spots at one of their vendor sites, and I didn't catch her name. She knew more about wrestling than anyone at High Spots. She was asking me so many questions. So happy to see me. How are you doing? I went to do a vendor autograph session, and this lady was and she was young. I mean, I'd say she's 30, and she worked for High Spots, and she was more interested, more intriguing than most people I've seen. Electric. She said that she was talking to me. Afterwards, I went up to the guys. I said, "Absolutely the worst interview I've ever had in my life. You're falling asleep. The cameraman has got his head in his hands. I'm sweating my ass off in the interview. I mean, completely dying in the interview. I mean, it was that hot. It was just brutal."
Wait, Eric, why did they shut the air conditioning off? Was it some kind of tactic, or they didn't want to spend the money?
No. They said that the airflow from the air conditioner would be picked up on their mics.
Did they have you mic'd, or did they use a universal mic for the entire room?
They had a boom mic.
A boom mic.
Yeah, like a universal. They had a. I believe they put on they had a large mic, like a boom mic, like you use in some interviews.
So describe this to me, because we always see the shoot interview and the legend, the star, sitting there, struggling. It looks like a lot of lights. Sometimes the audio is hard to hear. What does it look like from your point of view? The cameraman, what's he doing during the broadcast?
Yeah, well, first of all, if you're looking at it, I mean, you've got two cameras on you. You're sitting where there would be, in the hotel room. A lot of times in the hotel room, you got like a king-size bed, and then you might have a table with two chairs. They took out the table with two chairs. They put your chair, plus they put their big backdrop, their trifold backdrop, okay? Then you're staring at two cameras. Then there's a boom mic, and then there's two halogen-type lights on with the reflectors behind them about 2 feet from your face. So if you could imagine, I could almost stick my hand out and knock the right bulb out, knock the left bulb out, and there's cameras right in your face. The guy behind the camera is looking occasionally, and then he puts his head down, is looking through the viewer, puts his head down, and the guy that's laying in the bed behind the two cameras is just as cozy as could be, head on a pillow, sitting there just with 3 sheets of questions, asking you just the most boring questions I've ever had in my life.
So you've got this big guy on the bed laying down. He's sweating. Is he sweating away? I mean, I'm just trying to picture what this looks like. Is it...
Bro, I don't mean to cut you off, but you think about it. You put 3 men in a 4x4 room like a sauna, and that's what it was. It was a ridiculous, just complete, unprofessional, most idiotic thing I've ever seen in my life. Everyone is sweating their butts off, dying. And in between the interview, they had to change tapes. And I said, "Guys, I'm about to die. I'm going to walk out." And I walked out of the room for a little while, had my manager go down and get me water, put it in a cup, and and brought it back up to me, and so that I'd have something to drink during the second part of the interview.
Wow.
But I was still trying to be professional enough. People ask me this all the time. I had a booker this weekend, okay, and he booked the show, and there were no posters within a 2-mile radius. There was nothing outside the building to signify the fact that there was wrestling and or who was there. It was just the most unprofessional show I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was horrific. It's got me and Buff Bagwell, semi-main event, and an 8-man tag main event, okay? The guy comes in back before the match, gives us our payoff, because that's one of the things that I require is, half down and half before I go wrestle, okay? And I'm looking at the whole setup. I mean, the guys in the back are just bitching up a storm. All right, no matter how many people show up to that match, they don't know who the promoter is. They don't know why there's not signs out there. They don't know how the guys feel. They don't know who's sick or not sick. They don't know whose dog's dying. It's up to the fans. You still go out there. You still try your hardest to perform the best you can. It's almost like that interview. At the beginning, I tried to pull it off. I couldn't under those circumstances. I still gave them the hour and a half they asked for. I still answered their questions. And afterwards, I even sent a message, because Michael wasn't there, that I'd buy back the tapes from him at double the fee he paid just to have the tapes.
Eric, wait a minute. Are you telling me you hated this thing so much that you wanted to buy it back?
I offered back to buy the tapes back, because I said I was just so blown away at how bad it was that I knew it got under my skin, and I knew that my performance was such a tough environment that I just sat there and said, you know what? I'm not giving out my heart. I am not doing what I should do on this interview, because the conditions, the disrespect, and therefore I, as a business person, said I'd buy back the tapes in order for them not to air them, because I'd be embarrassed if anyone bought the dang things. Not because of Erik Watts, because of the whole scenario.
So do you think any other performer in the same situation would have done an interview as poor as that? Was it a hopeless situation? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, let me just say this. When someone gets me on an interview, okay, and they said, oh my goodness, we've got the greatest questions, and we don't ask the same questions that everyone else, and we're wanting, an hour or so of tape, and we do this, and we're so professional, and we're this and we're that. When you get into about the third question, it's 900 degrees, the guy's laying on the frickin' bed, the owner hasn't stopped by to say hello, do anything, okay? Nothing's happening the way it is, and you're being asked the same stupid questions. It just blew me away. I mean, I was thinking to myself, this is horrible. So I don't know how many of the wrestling family would do this. My point is, thank God I'm in a financial situation that I do not have to take on things that I don't want to do. Therefore, it also puts me in a scenario that I can offer back things like, hey, look, why don't you let me buy that interview back? I would buy and lose that money so that the fans didn't pay to get something that was so crappy. I haven't even checked it out. You're asking me, I haven't gone to YouTube or anywhere else to check out the interview, not because I'm mad. I'm not mad about the interview. I just feel bad that there's someone out there profiting from an interview that should never be released.
Yeah, well, maybe it'd be a good idea not to go to YouTube and not check it out, because, usually when you do an interview, you're looking straight ahead. The questions are intelligent. It's not all about the nepotism over and over and over again, as if you're the only son to have a little bit of a potential advantage because your dad was in the business, and the whole look and feel of it is not good. And I feel sorry for you, Eric, but a lot of the guys have done interviews. Some have been happy, and I guess in your case, some haven't. So did Michael try and make it good with you? Anything?
No. But see, Michael, I learned kind of later on. Michael used to be a lawyer, I guess, from what I understand, and I think he's done well, going to these shows and selling merchandise. However, this guy I would not say has the best personality. Michael never called me. He was gone by the time I was done doing the interview. I asked to speak to him. I asked to buy back the interview. There were no return calls. There weren't any callbacks. hey, if a guy's even upset, why not just call to say, thanks for doing the interview, good or bad? How'd you like it? How'd you like your experience? We appreciate it. I mean, I know when I used to run shows, even after the shows, I'd call the guys that worked the shows. Hey, man, thanks for driving all the way out. Thanks for this. Thanks for that. You okay? Look like you got hurt in that match or this match or whatever. You know, I mean, it's just that I thought there was a common courtesy in this industry, but maybe not. And it doesn't matter. You know, look, if that's the way he runs his business, that's the way he runs his business. And if he wants to sell that type of product out to his people, then that's on him. I mean, me personally, you throw an interview together that bad, I don't think I would have sold the product. I mean, if I would have heard one more time, so did you beat up this guy? Did you beat up that guy? I heard you beat up this person. What about your dad? What about the pressure about your dad? I mean, I can understand some of the questions, but I mean, it got to the point where it's like I thought I was doing a shoot fight interview for UFC. You know, did you beat up this person? Yes, and I'm about to beat you up because the interview sucks.
Erik, we're going to have to find out who conducted the interview because I'm real curious. I don't have any idea. You don't know? Did he introduce himself? Was he professional?
You know what happened was I was there at the NWA convention, and yeah, usually on interviews you know the person and or you've heard about the person, therefore they have a reputation. Just like I told you before, I would have not done a high spots interview if I didn't hear from other people that they are professional and good. And at the very end, now high spots, they're from Charlotte. So at this convention, NWA convention, which I was brought into, I'm sure they were doing a lot of interviews. By the time I got to the interview room, when I am there, I'm thinking these people are paying me to do an interview, to sell. Therefore, they've got to have a professional team together. I've heard good things about them. Therefore, I'm just going to run with the flow. I mean, this guy doesn't have like a Cracker Jack company. I mean, his company makes and does, from what I understand, a lot of money and a lot of product. Okay. So this isn't like an overnight sensation. So you've got to trust in some of these companies. So when I get up there and they're sitting there saying, this is your interviewer, this is this, this is that, and you see a kid that's, I don't know, I say 23, he might be 32, you know, and you got another kid that looks like, 28 or whatever behind the camera, you got to go with it. It wasn't until, the fifth question that I was going, what in the world is going on? These are the worst questions that anyone could ask.
And Erik, that's the thing I want to go on, because let's say the conditions were bad. Let's say they did pay you fairly, so that part's not up for debate. But the quality of the questions, and a lot of people have said that some of these shoot video companies, they ask poor quality questions. And you're basically saying that as a wrestler for 20 years, you felt the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it was horrendous because, the one thing that Michael told me when he was negotiating with me, when we were going to do it, what we were going to do was Michael was like, and it made sense. As a business person, he's like, hey, Erik, look, I know you go on a lot of shows. I know you, but it seems like the interviews you do are quality. Well, the reason why the interviews I do are quality is I don't take every interview that comes to me. It takes a reference. It takes a person telling me about the show. I go on their website, just as I did your website, to look at Buck Robley and all the fantastic interviews you have. My mom's been on there. Bill Watts has been on there. But besides the fact, I went and looked through the majority of your site to see what you were doing and who you're doing business with, so therefore I put it in their hands, and he was like, well, we want to ask questions so that we're not just regurgitating on videotape what everyone else asks. And then you could tell the guy had a printout sheet. And I think they stuck this kid. I think this kid probably did several of the interviews anyway, but I'm saying I think they stuck this kid in here. He didn't do the research. He went on 10 different interview sites and took 15, 20 questions. And if I was doing it, if I was going to steal other people's interviews, I would ask the questions that were asked the least amount of times. They literally asked me the same questions that I have been asked 1,000 times, and then they would just stay on it. I mean, how many times in how many different directions can you ask me, did I feel any pressure when my father was the president of WCW? First of all, let me ask you this. if you're the son or daughter of the president of any company or the United States, do you feel pressure? I mean, let's get over it. Yeah, there was pressure there, but you're going to ask me the same question 90 times in a row? I mean, haven't you seen other celebrities where the interviewer just keeps on just asking the same question but 10 different ways? That's how this interview went. It was the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, I feel sorry for you, Eric. It's out there. There's nothing we can do except I would like, and I'm going to ask you right now because we're going to close. I've got a busy schedule. You have a busy schedule as well. I would like to do an interview on a good deal of your career because you're a mystery man in wrestling. People really don't know what I've seen interviews, but I want to go behind the scenes from WCW in 92 on, see how you were treated by the, for example, Wrestling Observer, Pro Wrestling Torch, and how it was as your career developed. Would you be willing to come back with us for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can get a hold of the Observer or Torch, I sure would like my commission check because as far as I'm concerned, I graced the front page probably more than any athlete, and I probably sold more editions and copies than anybody else. And I think they should at least cut me, some kind of royalty check.
Eric, I think the only checks they cut are to themselves. But Eric, I do appreciate you coming by, and 57talk.com would love to have you again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
We'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.